Hi everyone, Valerie here. I'm going to be talking to you today in my garden area. I'm not going to be doing any gardening today because I wanted to just talk to you a little bit. This past week we had a bit of a family emergency, so I was trying to think of what to talk about today, and I told myself on this channel I don't really want to speak if I have nothing to say, and so this week pretty much drained all the energy out of me, all my brain power and everything. My dad was in the hospital for about 6 days, and he ended up having to have an angioplasty, and they put a stent in one of his main arteries that had 90% blockage. So thank the Lord that he's doing okay. He's actually doing great. He's going around saying he has a new heart to everybody, so that's great and exciting. But I wanted to talk to you today about how that experience affected me. No, I did not have the health issue, so I'm not taking away from the fact that my dad had a pretty major health issue, but I faced losing my dad this week. I felt what I thought could have been losing my dad, and as you may know, that I lost my mom 2 years ago. So on my previous video, I spoke about how grief sometimes has good merits to it too, and that was my relationship with my dad and how we've gotten closer in the past 2 years. And so this week was very scary for me, very overwhelming, and just it made me stop and think about his mortality, my mortality, and so I just wanted to speak on that. I started this channel to encourage people, but what do you do when you're the one that needs the encouragement? And so that's what I wanted to talk about, on being used to encourage people. One of those days where my dad was in the hospital, I went down to the hospital, had what they called a healing garden, and it had waterfalls and our water feature, and they had beautiful trees and landscaping and stuff. So I was just sitting there, and I was grieving my mom, and I was grieving, what was happening to my dad, and I just started crying, and I think I was just at a weak point. I was at a breaking point. I was just overwhelmed with everything, not knowing what was going to happen, and just things like that. So I started praying, and I asked God, send somebody to me to talk to me, to encourage me. And it was kind of like asking God for a sign. I changed directions because the sun was getting in my eyes and I was squinting, so I was asking God for a sign in the garden, and just send someone to encourage me, and nobody came. And I was crying, and I felt not abandoned, but I felt alone. And I know I'm not alone, but in that moment, that's how I felt. And I went home that night after visiting hours closed, and I cried to my husband. I prayed, And, God didn't send anybody to encourage me, and, that made me mad. I was just being real with him, and he tried, he encouraged me, and, but I felt like, why didn't God send someone when I asked him to? So, that night I couldn't sleep, and I have a friend who lives in Ethiopia, so when I can't sleep, I usually, reach out to her, and it's the afternoon over there, and so I reached out to her that night at about 4:30 in the morning, and I just let her know what was going on, and I'm like, can you just please pray? Because at that time we didn't really have a lot of answers, and we had a few issues that were scary, and so I just reached out to her and said, please pray. And a few minutes later, she wrote to me and she's like, I'm so sorry. Yes, I will pray. And a couple minutes later, she sent me this verse that I'm going to be reading to you. And it's Isaiah 43, 1 through 2. I have it in a couple of translations here for you. King James says, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. And the Good News translation says it a little more plain, and it says, do not be afraid, I will save you. I have called you by name, you are mine. When you pass through deep waters, I will be with you. Your troubles will not overwhelm you. When you pass through fire, you will not be burned. The hard trials that will come will not hurt you. And when I saw that verse, I just started crying, because God sent me that encouragement. It might have not looked the way I wanted it to look. I wanted someone to physically come and talk to me right then and there in the garden at the hospital. But it's not his timing. It's not my timing, it's his timing. And when I saw that verse, out of all the verses she could have picked to encourage me, she could have just said, I'm sorry, I'm praying for you, and left it at that, and I would have, been appreciative of that. But she sent me this verse, and it was just the perfect verse for me and for my dad. After I finished crying and thinking about everything, I sent it to my dad. I screenshot that message and I sent him that verse, and he responded right away, and he was like, thank you, that encouraged me. And so I called him, since he was up, and I called him, and I shared with him what had happened in the garden, and how I was a little bit mad at God for not encouraging me when I asked him to. But I told him, this verse means the same to each of us, like it encouraged. He was, discouraged in the hospital, getting all this information, and, and some of it was conflicting, and I was, discouraged because I just felt overwhelmed and just mentally and physically drained from just trying to be everything that he needed, and just being scared, because one of my trauma responses since my mom died is worrying something was going to happen to my dad. And that came true. It didn't come true in the way I thought it would, but it scared me. It scared me to my core. And so thankfully God guided the cardiologist's hands, and he got the angioplasty, and everything went well, and there's no adverse effects of it. But it was a very a very trying time for my dad, for me, for our family. And so I just wanted to encourage you to be encouraged, and to also be an encourager. You know, when you see someone struggling, or when someone reaches out with a need, don't hesitate to encourage them, because I have a small circle of friends, and you know, I can probably count on one hand how many friends I share my life with and confide in. And you know, of course, my best friend, you know, I called her up every day, multiple times a day, and she would encourage me. And you think that'd be enough for me? You think I'd be satisfied with that? But for some reason that day, I was just like, God, I need more. And it's okay to ask God for more, and He will give it to you in His timing. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that it's nice to be the encourager, but it's so nice also to be the one that's being encouraged. And you know, I want to encourage everybody on my channel who comes here and who wants to hear encouraging words. And I just want to let you know that sometimes the strongest people in your life need the most encouragement, and you may not even know. You know, I'm sure people walking past me that last week didn't see the turmoil going on in my heart and in my mind, because my dad was in the hospital. God did. God saw that, and He let me know that I'm not alone, and that He knows my name. You know, and He won't let us walk through our health issues and our heart issues and our grief issues alone. He will walk with us, and He will talk with us, and He will send, you know, encouragement all the way from around the world. Something that you really need. And so while I was writing things down of what I wanted to say, I thought of this song by Tasha Cobbs, and it's You Know My Name, and just a part of it says, you know my name, you know my name, oh how He walks with me, oh how He talks with me, and oh how He tells me I am His own. And for me, that really encouraged me, because sometimes I can feel alone, even when I'm surrounded by people, even when I'm surrounded by a loving, supportive family, I can feel alone. And that's just that's just human nature. You know, we don't, sometimes we're discouraged and we don't see what we have right in front of us. But when you're able to sit back and look out and see that God is always here, always there for you, and even when you ask Him to and He doesn't quite do it the way you think He will, and when you want Him to, He will do it right when it's right when you need it. Right when you need it most. I needed it, yes, that afternoon in the garden. But when I was lying in bed crying, and I reached out to my friend, God used her to encourage me and to help me see that I'm not alone. My dad's not alone. He will be with us through our trials, and when we're scared, and when we're afraid. He says, do not be afraid. I have saved you. I've called you by name. You are mine. So if you're feeling alone, just remember that scripture, Isaiah 43, 1 through 2. You are not alone. Do not be afraid. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will be speaking to you soon. Be encouraged. Bye-bye.